It's your weekly dose of confessions.
Hello and welcome to our Confessions podcast. Here it all comes. Enjoy the alliteration while it's here. This week's concise collection of terrible tales includes a quo quandary, pop star put-downs, some chien shenanigans, and a mouse moving house. Anyway, it works really, I think. Here it all comes. This is Radio 2. I said, hello to all the staff and pupils at the Perse School in Cambridge who wanted to mention just before the confession, which is where everyone seems to turn up. Well, we've done 40 minutes of really good show.
Yeah,
but, thanks for joining us now. Here's tonight's confession. It's from Charlie. Thank you very much indeed. You can send yours via the website or an email, confessions@bbc.co.uk. Sister Bobby from the Prior is joining us. I can't forget. Are you forgiving or quite a hard line at the moment?
Depends how funny it is. That's my problem.
No pressure.
Okay. Well, I'm just reading them out here. This is from Charlie. Dear Father Simon and the collective, it has been many years since my last confession. In fact, I've never made one before. But following your request for rock confessions, I've decided to unburden myself of something that happened nearly 30 years ago and has very occasionally, troubled me since. It was the early 80s, and I was a yuppie pretender. Pretender because, whilst I was young and pretty flash, I don't recall being very professional about anything. One evening with a group of friends, I found myself in a Heathrow Airport hotel, a fairly regular haunt for us at that time. This hotel boasted a large tropical area around the swimming pool with palm trees, fronds, the sounds of, you say cicadas? I've always said cicadas, and then discovered that no one else said cicadas, so I felt a bit of a fool.
Yeah.
Definitely cicadas. Did you say cicadas?
Cicadas.
Pardon?
Cicadas.
Yeah, what she said. And a large cocktail bar. Of course, as you go to Heathrow, that's instantly what you want, palm trees and everything else. Think Club Tropicana, says Charlie. Importantly for us, the bar was open to non-residents, but was pretty pricey, so on this night, as usual, we'd started the evening at a local pub with a couple of beers. On this occasion, I may have had more than a couple, which may be why when we finally got to the hotel, I went to the bar and the barman said they weren't serving cocktails anymore, and he tidied away the cocktail menu. Looking around for corroboration, I saw a man at a private table in the corner drinking a large, colourful drink with a couple of colourful friends. If you're not serving cocktails then, I'll have what that bloke is drinking, gesticulating to the table. As I did so, a wave of excitement passed over me. The man at the table was none other than Rick Parfitt of the mighty Status Quo.
Wow.
The barman replied, I have no idea what that gentleman is drinking. It can't be a cocktail. Undeterred, I said, well, I'm simply going to go and ask him then. As I approached the table, Rick was in the middle of a game of cards with two associates. Politely, I thought, I said, excuse me, Rick, what are you drinking? Rick gave me a frosty look. No, thanks, mate, was his confusing reply. Thinking maybe he does talk like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Thinking maybe he misunderstood me and that maybe the frosty look was because I used his first name, I repeated, probably slightly sarcastically, so sorry, Mr. Parfitt. I was simply asking, what are you drinking? It's bound to go down well. His frosty look turned into a glower, and he replied with a few choice words which I've omitted for good taste. I told you, mate, no thanks. Well, the man was clearly not cooperating, so I was about to give up when I saw a cocktail menu amongst the cards on the table. OK, Rick, have it your way, but can I borrow that? I said, pointing to the menu. At this moment, Rick rose to his feet, threw his cards on the table and said ominously to the guy next to him, sort him out, will you? Before heading towards the exit with a face like thunder. I braced myself, but his colleague simply handed me the cocktail menu. He was, however, extremely angry and growled, in exactly the same voice as Rick.
Yeah, oh, funny that, yeah.
Thanks for ruining our game and our entire evening. Oh, and by the way, he added, we wanted a quiet evening, and that wasn't Rick Parfitt.
Right.
Oh, I see, I said, tapping my nose. He didn't want to be recognised, I understand. No, you idiot, you didn't recognise him, because that was Francis Rossi.
Oh, no. All right.
It's the singer. So, looking back, it was an easy mistake to make. A 50-50 chance if you ignore the drummer, which is incidentally precisely what I did when he handed me the cocktail menu. Poor drummer. I was left considering whether to run after Francis to apologise, or whether this risked tipping him over the edge and earning me a physical rebuke. Luckily, I was saved from making a decision by one of my friends, who, on spotting Mr. Rossi leaving, pointed at him and shouted at the top of his voice, "Oi, you're that bloke from Spandau Ballet!" In the commotion that followed, which included my friend being thrown in the pool, I slipped away with my tail between my legs. So I need to ask forgiveness not from my friend who got thrown in the pool and had to travel home wet because I'd riled Francis Rossi. He deserved all he got because he was a big Jam fan, and he probably said that Spandau Ballet thing deliberately, though the apparent massive overreaction clearly surprised him. But I do ask for forgiveness for my ignorance in not recognising correctly one of the stalwarts of rock. All I can say in mitigation is that my judgment may have been alcoholically impaired, and also that I still cringe if I ever see the Margarita Time video, which was filmed that afternoon at the hotel where they were staying. I throw myself at your mercy. And if you ever watch the Margarita Time video, that is precisely where it was filmed, and looks as though it cost about 50p. Anyway, so Sister Rebecca, now Charlie wants forgiveness for this status quo-based confession.
It does remind me how annoying yuppies were and arrogant, and he demonstrated all of this. And his friend, it wasn't just charming Charlie, but his mate as well, who shouted at poor old Francis Rossi. I just think he doesn't come across well in this confession, does he? There's nothing that no attenuating, is that the right word? Circumstances. Anyway, extenuating, thank you very much. I think it doesn't matter that he didn't recognise Francis Rossi, that he mixed him up with Rick Parfitt. I just think he shouldn't have gone up to him, he shouldn't have bothered him, and I'm afraid you're not forgiven, Charlie.
These were the days when they had the long hair as well, so I don't think they should have muddled them up at all. It's Sister Bobby from the Prior, whose morality is entirely based on whether something's funny or not.
I loved it. I have to say, you cause a fight by accident with one of the members of Status Quo. You upset the other one. Your friend gets thrown in a swimming pool just by one simple question, which is, what are you drinking? Fabulous. You're forgiven, Charlie.
OK, I think confusing famous people will be good. Status quo-based confessions, poolside confessions, cocktail-based confessions, but
Definitely.
Brother Matthew speaks.
I think the point that's not been answered throughout this confession is, where was Rick Parfitt throughout all of this? Too good to be having cocktails down in the bar and having a game of cards with the lads, were we, Rick? Well, for that reason and that reason alone, I am going to forgive, because clearly Rick Parfitt thinks he's above all that. And let's be honest, Margarita Time was not the zenith of the Quo opus, so let's say we are definitely going to forgive, because frankly the video wasn't worth it anyway.
OK, people's verdict please. 88291, do you forgive Charlie for his status quo confession? 88291, you confess online once you've worked out what your story is. It's confession time, and we welcome back Sister Bobby from the Priory to our collective, who you'll remember yesterday, her interesting moral code: if it's funny, she forgives you. If it isn't funny, no chance. That's basically it, isn't it, Bobby? Yeah.
What a very broad sweep.
A very broad sweep. This one comes from Big Bad Sister. Thank you, Big Bad Sister, Father Simon and his backing band. I'm not sure whether sending you this is a good idea or not, really, but I've started. Here we go. I've been wondering about sending you a confession for ages, as we listen regularly, either in the car or at home. I'm married to my husband and have one daughter. She loves animals and Lady Gaga, and her room has many pictures, books, games and posters to tell you that. Actually, there's one poster of Gaga that she put up, which we then took down again, as it showed a few too many indescribables than we thought decent for a 10-year-old. But anyway, I digress. That's what posters of Gaga tend to do. She also owns animals. She has 2 mice, a hamster, a stick insect, though my husband actually believes it might have died, it's hard to tell, and a dog. And watching her devote her hours to her zoo has brought back many memories of my childhood. I have a younger sister called Maisie, and when we were at school together, she too started to become obsessed with animals. She made up for the lack of pets by having books on every animal known to man. Back in 1978, that wasn't quite so many as it is today. Well, actually, I'm not quite sure that works. Anyway, but it meant that she bored the pants off anyone when it came to animal facts. It didn't really matter what the animal was. She had the facts about it. A chimp can jump 4 times its height. A worm eats its weight in cheese every week. A cat can be made to walk in a French style, and so on. I think she might have just made those up. They were factoids, I think. Okay. On and on she would go until one magic day when our parents bought her a mouse. It was hard to shut her up, I think. No, sorry, it was to shut her up, I think. My parents didn't say anything, but I'm sure I saw them roll their eyes when Maisie trotted off another half-dozen facts about the horn-billed ant-gathering mouse, or whatever it was. In time, despite her being cute and everything, Maisie got to be even more annoying than sisters have a right to be. And by association, so did her mouse, called Stuart, after Stuart Copeland of the police. We all came, well, I did at least, to hate the mouse. Its squeaky wheel and its familiar acrid aroma began to really grate on my nerves. Sawdust appeared everywhere, and when Maisie let it out, we all had to watch where we were walking, or that might be the end of Stuart. And we wouldn't want that to happen, now would we? Anyway, one day as Stuart the mouse was out of the cage, he disappeared. Now, this had happened before, and normally it was found in a nook or cranny in the hall or kitchen where it might be warmer. But this time, there was no sign. Inducements were left out, and we're all under no illusions quite what this meant to my sister. She was mad, crazy, frenetic, hunting high and low for this mouse. She paced the rooms, crept on all fours under tables, lifted rugs and carpets. Eventually, she concluded that Stuart had left her and gone to explore the great outdoors. Found a hole or crack and slipped out. Maybe walking even now, said my mum, to find a new family. Yeah, right, as we didn't say in the 70s. Maisie was upset for a week at least and cried often. Slowly she moved on. I lent her my police albums as an act of sisterly solidarity, and Mum and Dad brought her a hamster for Christmas, which was only slightly less irritating than the mouse, and she called it Andy, after Andy Summers, also from the police. Anyway, so here's my confession to Maisie, which will be news to her. It was me. It was me, your sister, who made your mouse disappear. You might remember Tim in my year. Tall, rather good-looking, or so I thought at the time. The Tim I had a crush on and worshipped when he walked past and inhaled his cheap antiperspirant. We sat near each other in music, and I heard him tell a friend that he wanted a pet. His cat had died, and he was thinking of getting a bird or a rabbit. At break, I told him I had a mouse that he could have. And he seemed pleased. Really? Are you sure? He said. Yes, I said, I've got a few. You can have him if you like. Wow, thanks. And that was it. I had a deal to take my sister's mouse and trade him with Tim. When Maisie released Stuart for a walk, I had a pencil tube ready, and he seemed only too happy to run into it. I sealed the tube, already pierced with air holes, and placed it in my school bag. No one looked there for the escape mouse, because it was in my room. The following morning, when Maisie's still grieving, Stuart the mouse actually accompanied us to school, and at break I gave lovely Tim the pet he needed to recover from the death of his cat. So you see, I was motivated by concern for his welfare, really. Yeah. And he kissed me twice. A good price, really. You need to understand the mouse was really, really annoying, and life for everyone was better with Stuart gone. But I realised that Maisie might not see it like that. Yeah, quite right there. But Tim looked after the mouse well, he said, so that's okay. I hope I might get a little forgiveness, but maybe that depends on whether the collective have little siblings with little pets that squeak a lot. My daughter will be horrified if she joins the dots on this story, but a new animal encyclopedia will sort her out, hopefully. Thanks anyway, from the big bad sister. Well, it's annoying sister, annoying mouse, a thought.
I'm finding this difficult because I was the little sister with the annoying pets. I had really noisy hamsters called Brian and Seymour. By the way, I love pets. Human names, don't you? I mean, Stuart and Andy, fantastic.
Really?
Yes, Brian and Seymour they were
Why
called.
were they called Brian and Seymour?
I don't know. I've got no idea.
Were they the backing band
No,
of Nick
they
Hayward?
were not named after anyone who sang. Just, I don't know, I like the names. That was some confession. I mean, if Maisie was listening to that, she is going to be shocked.
She will probably still be really...
I think so.
Yes.
And I think she will have every right to be very angry, actually. On the other hand, Big Bad Sister did get it together with Tim, so maybe it was worth it. And Maisie got a hamster instead of a mouse, which I think a hamster is a superior pet, personally. So I think for all those reasons, you're forgiven.
OK, what about Sister Bobby from the Priory?
Well, I'm a bit with Rebecca, because if you've had a big sister that does things to you, it kind of just echoes all that. But...
This is the sister you're living with now, is it?
No, that's my little sister.
Oh, little sister.
I'm her big sister. It works in reverse. So I would say, actually, not forgiven. All the trauma that she caused her, because little Maisie would have thought she was negligent, she didn't take care of Stuart properly, that would have made her had doubts whether she was capable of looking after the next one, and basically she didn't get Tim, did she? She's not married to Tim now. I don't think
I don't think so. I think she might have mentioned
So actually,
that.
no. Not forgiven.
Probably gave Maisie a whole lifetime of issues. What do you think, brother?
I've got to say, as far as opening gambits go, I hear your cat's died. Fancy a mouse? I've got plenty to spare.
Yes,
Timmy Tim.
You can have
That's not bad, actually. Well done. And she took against the mouse because it squeaked and smelled a bit.
Smelt of mouse.
Yeah, and was a bit small. It's a mouse. What were you expecting, Big Bad Sister? So I am going to not forgive because she was basing it entirely on the characteristics of a mouse. But well done for getting a couple of kisses off Tim.
OK, so what do we get out of this? I think, the people's verdict, please. 88291. Do you forgive Big Bad Sister? Sisterly confessions. Hamster and mice-based confessions, so obviously with care. And with respect for all life.
For all animals, obviously. Yes,
Thanks.
Kids.
Otherwise, on a course for you, Brother Matthew. That's what's happening. It's a drive time confession. You can send in yours at any time, please. You can email confessions@bbc.co.uk or go via the website. Brother Matthew is here, Sister Bobby from the Priory is here, and also Sister Rebecca. All gathered to pronounce on this from Neil. Neil sends in tonight's tune. Father Simon and the One and Only Collective. Hearing the recent confession about Brett Michaels of Poison and the immigration officer who almost denied him entry to the country reminded me of my own fleeting brush with musical fame and how I single-handedly torpedoed a promising pop career. Which is not a bad opening gambit. Let me take you back to the early summer of 1991. I was in my final year at university and had spent much of my free time running the disco at the halls of residence. Our parties were the talk of the university, and before long we were attracting fans from far and wide. Music was quite exciting in the early 90s. House music was in full swing, having moved from the industrial clubs into the mainstream. The navel-gazing Manchester sound of the Happy Mondays, Stone Roses and the Inspiral Carpets were breathing new life into the indie scene, and Stock Aitken and Waterman were still pushing the frontiers of pop. Earlier that year, Chesney Hawkes, unforgettable, the one and only, had graced the top of the UK Top 40 for a full 5 weeks. My musical tastes, I should say, are wide-ranging, but I knew what to play to get people moving. I would play anything from 1950s rock and roll up to the hot hits of the day. My crowning achievement was getting a hall full of 300 people doing the Blockbusters dance to Born to Hand Jive from Greece, but that's another story. Our record collection was relatively small for a disco. I think we had about 400 singles and about 50 albums, but we were usually able to meet the requests of people who would come up to me behind the wheels of steel. I reckon Neil quite fancied this job and has got a shiny jacket probably hanging up somewhere. One particular girl, says Neil, whose name I never found out, seemed particularly well up on the music scene. She would often turn up and ask for records which were just breaking into the charts. She once asked me to hand the mic over to a friend of hers who wanted to rap over a rave track called I Want to Give You Devotion by Nomad, which was currently riding high in the top 10. After a bit of persuasion, I agreed, only to find, to my delight, that the MC Mikey Freedom on the record was the self-same MC Mikey Freedom who was rapping into my sound system at the time, which, if you need a reminder, was something a bit like this. Do you remember this, Rebecca?
Oh, yeah.
It's about 10 years after your era, really. This is MC Mikey Freedom. Anyway, who features? There you go. So that was him in the disco, actually rapping live to the track. So, says Neil, my confession takes place a couple of months after that famous episode. It was the summer ball, the crowning party for all the students, especially those like myself who had completed finals and were awaiting results. The party was in full swing and the floor was full of sweaty people a-grooving and a-dancing like there was no tomorrow. I was just queuing up the next floor filler when the same girl came up to ask me for a record, and I leant over to listen. "Can you play the one and only?" she shouted. "The what?" I said. "The one and only by Chesney Hawkes," she yelled. "Really?" "Yes, really, it's been number one, you know," she said. "I know that," I said sarcastically. "What's that got to do with it?" All this is shouted over music.
Yeah, we got
but,
that. Yeah.
"I really like it, that's why," she said with what I now realise, looking back, was a touch of desperation. "No, I haven't got it," I said. "Why not?" she yelled. "Because," I said dramatically, "it's totally, utterly the most useless song I've ever heard. It's pants and you know it." Understandably, her face fell at this. Only then did I notice her companion, that chiselled chin,
Oh, no.
Those cheekbones, that slicked back blonde hair, it was none other than the one and only Chesney Hawkes himself, and I just told him to his face exactly what I, and by extension the floor full of ravers, thought of his recording career to date. To say he looked crestfallen is an understatement. In fact, he looked close to tears at being unable to do this impromptu PA. The girl took his hand and led him away across the dance floor. I heard later that he'd needed a lot of comforting. Music swells, and had actually been somewhat devastated by my verbal assault. He needed many dry-roasted peanuts.
What?
Never mind. I never saw the girl again, says Neil, despite doing the hall discos for a couple of years after I graduated. Chesney's next single, I'm a Man Not a Boy, came out later that month, but only reached number 27, and he never troubled the charts again. So I seek forgiveness both from the mystery girl and from Chesney Hawkes for shattering her celebrity marketing ambitions and his pop career. In my defence, if I had owned the record, I probably would have played it, but Chesney would probably have been bottled off stage, so I think it was the lesser of two evils, really. I still enjoy music in all its forms, but now I play drums in a loud rock band, adds Neil for no reason. Yours eternally, hopeful of absolution, and just if you need some extenuating circumstances... It was that. If Sister Rebecca was a groovy.
I was grooving in a not entirely serious way.
Oh,
I
is
may
that
add.
right?
This reminds me of I used to do a bit of DJing at school.
You never
I was
did?
called not at school at university. I was called Pike on the mic, obviously, and I used to do.
This is great.
This is
all that-
superb.
all
Did
that
you have a
college
shiny
pop.
jacket?
I didn't know, but I did play some mad combinations of music.
You should never have told us that.
I know.
This
I should
is
never have done.
superb.
Anyway, it brings me back. I think that Neil
Were you
was.
any good?
I got them all dancing.
What,
They
Pike
were
on the
like-
mic?
Pike
Whoa,
on the mic.
yeah.
got them
What
all
was your
dancing.
guaranteed floor filler? In desperation,
actually,
what would you
Snap
go for?
was the one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
superb.
And then I'd do stuff like baggy trousers. Floor filler
Yeah.
doesn't really
Do
go
it.
in terms of
Like it.
eras.
Bank
but-
holiday, if you're listening, downstairs
here it
management.
comes.
Bank holiday, never mind booking some comedian for a vast amount of money. Pike on the mic, that's
Shows what you
exactly
got.
who you
Yeah.
need. She's here, she's on staff.
Anyway, therefore, I think that Neil was well done to you for sticking to your guns and not compromising, just to impress this woman who you quite liked. I would.
Well, he actually didn't have it, so there wasn't much he
He
could...
didn't have it, yeah, but it also, I suppose he could have made something up about how good it was, but he didn't have it, that night, because he'd lent it to somebody. Anyway, so I think it was right for him to be purist about it, about his musical taste. So you're completely forgiven.
A Christmas party.
That is going to happen. That's
sorted.
definitely going to happen.
Sister Bobby from the Priory.
I sit on the fence because I partly sympathise because of his putting his foot in it, because I do that all the time, and I was just sitting there thinking, how many people have I upset by speaking my mind? So he's partly forgiven, but he's not forgiven because actually he should have played it, because he wasn't...
He didn't have it.
Well, yeah, but he should have found it. He didn't have it.
Well, you can't go and find it if he didn't have it.
Well, he needs to go and find it. Because the reason why I'm upset is he should have it, because in light of this school disco, big grown-up school disco, it's the kind of cheese that you need. And I think he was just being a bit too cool about it. And he wasn't in a club, and it would have been fine to play it. It would have been great. And he upset Chesney Hawkes, which
It's
is
the
never a good
cheese
thing.
that you need with Pike on the mic. Can you come up with anything better than those two
Oh,
phrases?
no.
What do you think, Brother Matthew?
Well, what we're all appear to be overlooking here is Chesney Hawkes is going up and requesting his own record.
With this girl.
What kind of ego is that? I'd like you to play my record by me, please. No, I don't think I will, pal.
Well,
And anyway,
she's
it's not
an
a very
interest-
good record.
She's an interesting woman. So one day she's with MC Mikey
she's
Freedom,
very well
and the
connected.
next she's with
Yeah.
Chesney Hawkes.
Yeah. She knew a lot in the pop and rock business, mate. Pike on the mic. Yes. So I'm going to say I am going to forgive because you didn't bow down to Chesney Hawkes demanding that you play his records, which weren't very good either, by the way.
So thank you very much. So now we need the people's verdict, please. 88291. Do you forgive Neil? Do you have a disco-based confession? Do you have an MC Mikey Freedom or a Chesney Hawkes?
Or a Pike on the mic confession. That would be great.
If
please.
you ever went,
Yeah,
in fact,
yeah.
fact, you're exactly right. If you ever went to one of those discos which featured in charge of the decks Pike on the mic, we'd love to know the stories.
Yiggity-yiggity-yah.
There must be quite a few. Send your confession, please, to confessions@bbc.co.uk or go via the website bbc.co.uk/radio 2. Big drive time section. The archive is there, and there's a form for you to fill in with your confession on there. This comes from Stephen. Stephen, thank you. My tale of compunction begins on a cold, dark night in the very early throes of 2011. My family and I were returning home from an enjoyable but rather exhausting New Year trip to Disneyland Paris. At this juncture, I feel it prudent to point out that at the time my family consisted of a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a wife who was 8 months pregnant. So we packed the car, bid farewell to Monsieur Mouse, and hit the autoroute to catch the Eurotunnel. Use bode, the past tense of bid. Do you bode farewell?
Isn't it bade? Bade farewell?
I vote for bade.
Okay.
Yeah.
We bade farewell to Monsieur Mouse.
No, I don't think so.
And hit the autoroute.
Who's Monsieur Mouse?
We said goodbye to Mickey Mouse. It's Eurotunnel. It's Euro Disney. Sorry, I got waylaid there. Here we go. Paragraph 2. We'd been driving for about 30 minutes when I noticed that our children had both fallen asleep, but also fallen forwards in their car seats. My wife couldn't reach them, so frustrated that our schedule was being affected, I huffily pulled into the nearest lay-by, got out of the car, rearranged the kids and got back in again. I was about to pull away when I noticed a large, bright orange streak on the car mat beneath my feet. What the... began to form on my lips when I realised that I must have acquired a healthy dollop of crotte de chien from the lay-by. It wasn't very pleasant, and no one was very happy with me. I didn't want to miss our train, so after a bit of cussing, I decided to leave my trainers and the car mat by the roadside and continue the journey in my socks. The remaining car journey was uneventful, and we arrived at Calais in good time to catch our train. However, there was no train. The station was operating on reduced staff. It was 2nd of January after all, and our train had been cancelled. In its place was a queue a mile long and a confirmation from the ticket booth that we'd been rebooked on a train leaving in 3 hours. Getting increasingly frustrated with the chaos and with the thought that we wouldn't be getting home until the early hours of the morning, my wife offered a simple solution. "Why don't I just go into premature labour?" she asked. Well, we thought about it for about a second, wondering if we could be so devious. "Brilliant," was my one-word answer. We gesticulated to a guard that we needed some assistance, and with a combination of Pidgin French and the universal sign language for "My wife is in labour, we need to move," basically lots of panting and rubbing of bump, our card was stamped with VIP and we were glided through to passport control. Out of sight, we high-fived each other and casually sauntered our way towards the train. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. After passport control, we rounded a corner and ended up in another queuing system. This one had 10 lanes with a barrier at the end of each one. Well, no problem, we thought. Our Gallic guards will be along soon to sweep us onto the train and back to Blighty. We waited for what seemed like ages. We didn't move. There was jostling in the cars ahead of us. Some drivers were leaving their vehicles to congregate on the verge, to have a tut and a moan and to gesticulate about the situation. I decided to join them. So in my stocking feet, remember, I left the sanctuary of our car. I looked up, nodded towards the gathered drivers, and stepped straight into another load of French fancy. By now, I was mad. I had had enough. After cussing every dog and Frenchman that had ever lived, I removed my socks, left them on the verge, and got back in the car. After wiping the tears of laughter from her eyes, my wife took her labour, in inverted commas, to another level. She got out of the car, leaned against the lamppost, obviously avoiding the doo-doo, and screamed like a banshee. Wow. A kind-hearted woman in the car next to us approached. She screamed animatedly, confirmed that my wife really was in labour, and ran off to find someone in authority. Suffice to say, we didn't stay long in that queue and were again whisked through to the waiting train. We sunk down into our seats while the safety announcements were being broadcast and quietly smiled to ourselves. It had taken us a while and we were probably one step closer to burning in hell, but we were on our way home. It was at that exact moment that another passenger mentioned there's an ambulance coming down the platform. However, luckily for us, no one on the train had witnessed my wife's earlier performances, so we just kept our heads down and hoped the paramedics would soon be heading off for a baguette.
Obviously, because they're French.
This they duly did. The train departed, and we finally made it home safely. So we do need to seek forgiveness, not from the Eurotunnel staff, nor from the Canine Club de France, but from the kind-hearted woman who genuinely thought that my wife was about to drop, and the ambulance drivers who were scrambled under false pretenses. As a last-ditch plea for clemency, can I add my wife gave birth to a lovely, healthy baby boy a few weeks later. Yours in penance, Stephen? Well, you have to say it's pretty ingenious. I suppose someone might have got left off at the end of the queue as a result of your falseness. But anyway, let's see what Sister Rebecca makes of this.
This actually does remind me of when I was about to miss my flight to Italy.
Were you doing gigs with your disco?
No, I wasn't. But we were getting married, and I was there with my husband-to-be, and we literally were 5 minutes away, and we just arrived because there'd been a traffic accident. And we had my wedding dress. We were getting married in Italy, and it worked. In fact, it was a genuine thing.
Yeah, so you were telling the truth.
We were telling the truth. I'm just saying it's something that could be used in future. Anyway...
Well, I'll bear that in mind.
Bear that in mind.
I'm heading off.
I think they may have been tempting fate. I mean, be careful what you wish for. I thought that the punchline was going to be, and then she really did go into labour, and that was all caused by the fact she'd been pretending. So they could have got into trouble over that one, and
yes.
I think a bit of a waste of ambulance time as well. Having said that, it was a very amusing story. So I'm going to forgive you, Stephen.
OK, let's see what Sister Bobby from the Priory makes of it all.
Great story. Very, very funny. The only thing I'm really surprised with is they didn't actually make them get in an ambulance, because surely if someone was genuinely going to labour, putting them on a train to go underground for 90 minutes, I can't remember actually how long it is, surely that's not a good idea? I'm not questioning
I think
the
they probably
validity.
just wanted to get rid of the mad Englishwoman.
OK, that's fine. But yeah, definitely, great story.
Someone
Yeah,
else's
down on
problem,
that
I
front.
think that's what they did.
Definitely forgiven.
Brother Matt.
It strikes me as very effective, this particular ploy, and I, for one, will be telling my wife the next time we go anywhere that she needs to bring a cushion with her and shove it up her top and do the old howling like a banshee, gets you to right in the front of the queue every time, apparently.
You can imagine this is going to happen a lot. Suddenly,
yes.
How come we've got 37 people all in labour, all at the same time?
And if I believed in karma, then the fact that he kept sticking his foot in something whilst doing all of this would lead me to believe that was all balancing up for him. So I am going to definitely forgive, because it sounds so effective, and it worked. That's what's the best thing about this, is it worked every time. Well done.
So, people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Stephen and his family? I suspect most people are going to.
Yeah, why not?
Meantime, we'll have Disneyland confessions.
Oh, yes. Monsieur Mouse.
Yes. Are there pregnancy confessions? I don't know.
Yeah.
Using a pregnancy to get to the front of the queue.
Yeah. Queue-dodging confessions,
yes,
definitely.
queue-dodging is very good. Labour confessions. We'll take some of those, whatever you have. It's confessions at bbc.co.uk. There, this week's confessions. Who did you forgive? Drop us a line with yours, confessions at bbc.co.uk, or go via the website. Pretty good, I thought.
Thanks for listening to this BBC Radio 2 free download. Now, why not try more?
Jazz for me, I guess, is improvisation.
My pick of the best in rhythm and blues.
Music from Richard Thompson, Chris Wood and Pentangle, amongst many, many others.
All at the BBC Radio 2 website.